You're in the hole. You're the anchor.
Where do you guys want to sit?
Arriving around in about 10 minutes. I'd like to introduce and have welcome remarks from Attorney Agustino Rivera.
Well, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to our home. This is the Portuguese Culture Center. It's not just a building. It's not a facility. It's not a commercial establishment. This is our home. The final theme, of course, is compassion of this conference. This home, the people of our community, continue to have an open heart and an open mind to every culture of this community and the city. It's not just for Portuguese. All people can become members. That's a compassionate offering to our entire community for this amazing facility.
I don't think that we could have chosen or selected a more incredible place. I welcome all of you for this incredible conference. Thank you.
The next person I'd like to introduce changed our university when he came here. He has made it to what it is now. He has stepped up, as Augie has, for faculty, for staff, and especially for students. He's a model of whenever I grow up, I want to be like. And that's President Smatter. President Smatter.
When you grow up, Chris, hope you have a better jump shot than I did. The importance of community in a broader sense in human society. An importance that really goes back millennia to the first hunter-gatherers who were successful because they formed communities and were able to survive. And events like what happened in December in Newtown remind us, I think, of the interconnected elements that make up a community. In times like those, the silos break down, sometimes for good, sometimes for ill, but they break down. And how the practice of compassion plays an especially important role in this work of connection. I know that this conference will address those and many, many more as you explore how compassion affects so many realms of our lives and helps build strong, effective, caring communities. I'm delighted that we can be the host for this. It's an important element of what we do at our university, and I am proud that you could all come on this rainy day and be with us. So I hope you have a great, great conference. I thank you all for coming.
A man who has touched me deeply, and when it comes to compassion, when you're just around him, you know it. You can feel it. He is the resident teacher at DNKL and the Lama, and I'm proud to call him a friend as well. Geshe-dargi, come on.
Good morning. To compassion, I pay homage. Just as in crop, seed gives rise to sprout, which are then nourished by water, and finally harvested for the enjoyment of beings. Likewise, for the perfection of human potential. Compassion serves as the seed in the beginning. Compassion serves as the water in the middle, and compassion serves as the harvest in the end.
How can we shift the focus from me to we? How can we turn a destructive event into something constructive? How does compassion affect the dynamics of a community? Compassion is the recognition that all beings are profoundly interconnected, such that the joys and sufferings of one are the joys and sufferings of all, with a corresponding commitment to appreciate and treat with respect all individuals as we ourselves would want to be treated, even and especially when we find it difficult to do so, and to alleviate suffering when and where we encounter it. Compassion is not just thinking, it's doing.
Newtown is a case history, a living case history of making good come from evil, making the we so much more important than any me. And of course, their compassion and ours for them has brought us together, indeed has changed America. Newtown changed America. We are different now. I know we don't want to talk politics here, so I won't. But I do want to talk about the coming together in our political process of people with very different views and uniting on trying to make America safer, stop the epidemic of gun violence in this country, save our children from the horrific effects of certain kinds of weapons of war, and not just the families and children of Newtown, but 3,300 people who have been victims of gun violence since Newtown. She is the face of the answer to all of these three questions, just as the families of Newtown have provided us with such a living model of public service and faith and leadership.
Compassion goes beyond being aware of and caring about the feelings of others. There's an action component in compassion and an understanding of the interconnectedness of all beings. It's the action component that really triggered my thinking. So I say, I then can look for evidence of compassion in the actions of people. It's beyond what people say or do. It is the demonstration of that. To be compassionate then means a commitment to the doing of something that helps another person to be freer of worries or of suffering. And further, that the action springs from a belief in the interconnectedness and worthiness of all beings. Compassion compels us to reach out to others. One question is, can government be compassionate? What does that mean? I have some thoughts later on. I know that Chris is going to toss me that softball, and I'm going to get a chance to really talk about government and compassion and see where there's an intersection, if there is, and what does that intersection look like. The decisions that we had to make then, how do we treat others when they give us that gift of compassion, and how can we turn that compassion right back on them?
And oftentimes people come in just to vent. They just want to be heard. It's not even a question about whether you can fix their problem. It's just the fact that somebody took the time to sit down with them and to listen to what their issue was. We really have a duty to listen to those folks. And she was upset and she was angry and she wanted me to make that bill go away right now. And I said, I really can't do that. I said, but look, I said, you have to start thinking a little bit about yourself. And I know that interaction she felt really good about. Now, I couldn't change the law. I couldn't make her humongous car bill go away. But she walked out of there saying, hey, listen, that person cares, he's willing to listen to me, and he was compassionate. There's the people that are truly compassionate and that, like those kids from Columbine High School that wrote a banner that Pat showed me that was hanging up in Newtown Town Hall, signed by each of them expressing their sorrow, an incredible, sympathetic, compassionate gesture. And then there was the person that called me up from Colorado that wanted to rent 20 snow machines and bring them in on Christmas Eve and spray the entire town of Newtown with snow so that when everybody woke up in the morning they could have a white Christmas. Those are really the two kinds of people. People who had profound acts and gestures of giving to this community that suffered so greatly. And then the other people that had stuff about themselves that they were trying to resolve through this. And it's something that I think we should be careful and discuss a little bit about how we manage that. The values of violence that are thrust upon them at every corner, from language to video games to entire spectrum of media that bombards them each day, that tells them certain behaviors are okay. And we know that there's very solid research, and 14 years as a high school teacher and with a master's degree in educational psychology, I can show you solid research that violent, horrific video games that played over and over desensitize young people towards those kinds of acts, and we need to recognize that just as much as any of the other problems and challenges that we have in this society.
I think that if communities really focus on strengthening families and understanding what that means and doing everything possible to to provide supports for families. I think that we have a possibility of making a change there.
Servicing a very small group of people who have serious mental health issues, and it's costing you more. It's costing all of us more than if we had inpatient care. So I think we need to go back and revisit that, and that was the cheap way for us to get out of having to do what was right and humane and compassionate to our residents who were suffering from mental health. Is that across the country, kids are learning to be less caring and compassionate towards each other, and that plays out in a myriad of different ways. And ultimately, you have things like teen suicide, bullying, and all the other horrific events that you hear and read about.
My name is David Kitay. I teach religion at Columbia University. We have a mandala here, and a priest, a rabbi, a geshe, and an imam walk into a mandala.
The creation spirituality is what I'm really into, and that involves passion and compassion and healing and dynamics. The M for me just has to be flipped over and you got a W for we. We with our strengths and our hopes and as well as our limitations, our expectations. The dunamis in the Greek. Dunamis means power, the dynamics, the power, the spirit of a community. If it's more than one passion, you couldn't narrow it down to one, hyphenate it and just see the interconnectedness and how they work together to make you who you are and drive you to want to get out of self to serve others. What does it do for you? How does it recreate you to become even more godlike? We will need to reinstate creativity at the very core and to move away from the excessive preoccupation with individual rights. Dare I say, 1 and 2 amendments, and to move towards the moral demand of responsibility to create, or better still, to co-create with the God who freely and lovingly chose to bring us all into being. And God still sees that it is good. Peace be with you.
Aspiration for happiness, for joyfulness, for happiness, for something good, however diversely we may define it at different stages of our growth, maturation, experience. I think we're talking of a slightly grown, mature compassion. For that to happen, we have to do homework within ourselves for compassion to grow within us. And there too, there can be several steps of making compassion grow. The first initial step for compassion to grow, for it to take shape, is the restraint against harming others. So compassionate action towards others need to start with self-compassion.
What I would like to do is to touch on the practicality of being a compassionate, whether person or community. It's very natural for a human being we run to our faith in times of tragedies. We run to our faith when we feel stripped of the tools that keeps us safe. Also, Islam, as I've learned it and I studied it, it has an aspect that deals with the essence of the person, but at the same time, it translates those principles of belief, if you will, and there's about 6 of them in Islam. What makes a Muslim is his belief in God, in the oneness of God, his belief in prophets, including Moses, Jesus, Abraham, and Muhammad as the last messenger, the belief in the holy books, the belief in the hereafter, the belief in angels. And then the 6th pillar of belief is what we call the qadr. And usually in talks like this, you will not find many Muslims who would like to indulge into that 6th pillar of belief, even though it is a pillar of belief. The reason for that is extremely difficult to understand. What does that exactly mean? The qadr in Arabic means, and it's translated in English, into destiny or predestination, or something that God, Allah, has decreed to happen. So how can we be asked about actions if everything is predetermined? But we believe that within the will of Allah, in His wisdom, He gave human beings their own will to make your own choice, so you can be held accountable. So it's a very difficult concept to dwell in. I'm trying to keep it simple. As I said, these are the 6 pillars of faith. But at the same time, and most of you probably know in some of the classes when they teach about Islam, they focus more on the 5 pillars of Islam. You probably said, when I said 6 pillars of faith, you're like, wait a minute, my teacher said 5. Well, the 5 pillars of Islam are more of a practical aspect of our faith. Faith, belief, is what takes hold in your heart and translates into actions. Those who visited Mecca, they experienced a transformation. It's a very powerful one. If you read the biography of Malcolm X, one of the major things that made Malcolm X review a lot of the things that he learned within the Nation of Islam.
Maybe the most important, or a very important element of compassion, is inside. During Ramadan, or as Geshe-la said, checking in, or as Reverend Leo said, meditating on your passion.
The thread that ties us all together, I believe, is ahavta l're'echa kamocha, love your neighbor like yourself. There are 2 basic principles in the human spirit, and one is called love and one is called hate. From love, there comes many great things: compassion, patience, forbearance, generosity, and these are the fruits of love, and many others. Parallel to that, or a jealous, let's take jealousy, okay, which is a negative, and that would come from hate. The counterpart of jealousy is admiration. It's the same energy, but that energy cultivated through the aspect of love will become admiration. And you know when a person tells you something or admires something, you know that they could be jealous of you, but they've elevated that, and they're just happy for you. They're able to be happy for something good in your life. How do you really get there and navigate always towards the love? So erech apayim with virachum. Okay, I'm going to focus now on the word erech. Means broad, and it's translated in English as slow to anger. God being slow to anger, or being patient. Apayim literally means the nose, okay? And I know that's kind of a Jewish stereotype, the long nose. But what does the nose do? The nose, let's not talk about the external, let's talk about the internal. The nose is the breath.